Philly. Turn it up. 95.3 Jams.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Rebirth. Happy Martin Luther King Day to everybody that's out there. You are tuning into the Rebirth here at Philly Jams 95.3. I am your host, Shay Marriott, and we are in the building tonight. Tonight, we have a great show coming to you live. I can't wait to get into it. All right, guys. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of feedback. You know how we do. We have to make a little mistake, or that's what being alive is about. So again, welcome to the Rebirth, and thank you for tuning in tonight. Make sure you tune in every Monday night at 7 p.m. Philly Jams 95.3. And tonight we are going to be talking to Poet Loschil is in the building, all the way here from New Jersey. I'm so excited to have him here. That's what's up. That's what's up. So before we introduce and get started with Poet Loschil, we're going to do Right Here, Right Now. Right Here, Right Now is a segment that we do here on the Rebirth, talking about what's going on in the world. And as you know, today is Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Well, the celebration of it. His birthday was actually January 15th. So the whole world is actually doing little celebrations around. But Martin Luther King Jr. holiday is observed every third Monday in January. Those of you that did not know that. Today he would have, January 15th, I should say, he would have turned 93 years old. He was a pastor and civil rights leader who dedicated his life to achieving racial equality. A goal he said was inseparable from alleviating poverty and stopping war. So we definitely pay our respects to Martin Luther King. He was born 1928 and he left us 1968. He was 39 years old when he was assassinated by James Earl Ray. So what did you do for Martin Luther King Day? How did you observe it? I'm very curious. Give us a call, 267-908-3166. Again, 267-908-3166. 3116. You are listening to the Rebirth on Philly Jams 95.3. Gotta shout out my boy Eli Isabel. Man, if you don't get your butt back to this station, I miss you. I miss you. Hopefully he'll be back next Monday. So make sure you guys keep your prayers up and send love out to Eli. So tonight we are going to be talking to Poet Loschil from the Lost Files podcast. Welcome to the Rebirth, Poet.
What's happening, family? How are you?
How are you?
Marvelously well, I guess I should say.
I know that's right. What you been doing, man? You know you got your own podcast going on.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm moving. I'm staying in motion at this point. That's all I can really say. I can honestly say I don't know what it is, but I know with everything that's going on, things need to be spoken of, and folks just need help. Folks just need to hear some things. So I'm here. I'm on a journey.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your journey. Let's talk about the Lost Files. I love the name, of course. Tell me how that came about.
I definitely. Well, when the idea was presented to me for a podcast, from the adoption perspective, I don't have, like what most of the adoptee-centered podcasts that I've been listening to, they have answers, they have resolution, they have some solution to the problem that a lot of adoptees have as far as finding their birth parents and having reunions with their families. So most of these people have found something and they have resources to share for other adoptees. I am still in the midst of the process. I haven't found out any information, so I don't have anything necessarily to offer in that sense other than the voice of someone 45 years into who has yet to find and all the ills that comes out of not knowing who I am and where I'm from and who my people are for 45 years of my life. So that's why I didn't want it to be entitled in anything specifically about adoptee, because number one, it's not going to be just about adopting centered stuff, but I am a black male adoptee, and I've been learning in the community there's a very small voice for specifically Black male adoptees.
Yes.
Like I guess as a collective, I guess just as men as it is, we're not very vocal and expressive about emotional stuff or whatever the case may be normally. So specifically in this community, it's almost unheard of to hear our perspectives,
right?
And where we are with it as far as our mental health and things of that nature. So if I can provide a voice to that void,
yeah,
if it's helping somebody else that's in that situation, like the thing I keep telling people, I think, like I said, at 45, it's just not being dismal or looking at it in the dark from a dark perspective. But I think I've been where I've been for so long, it just is what it is at this point.
Right.
But if there's another young man who has a similar story to where mine was when I was 13, 14, 15, and he's in that same situation where no one's talking to him, no one's answering his questions, no one's addressing any of his concerns, no one's asking him, are you okay? How do you feel about this? What is your whatever? If he doesn't have anything from family or the people around him, he may run into my show at some point, or he may see my Instagram page or whatever. So he knows if he can't get it at home, at least there's some resources out there that he can reach out to, because I think it's definitely a problem going this long, not being able to know who you are.
Right.
So I definitely don't want, if I can do something to stop this situation from happening to some other kid, if nothing else, that's worth it for me.
Absolutely. Well, I have a ton of questions for you, but just to set the tone, we are speaking to Poet Loschil from the Lost Files podcast, and tonight we're going to be talking about his journey of rediscovering his identity and healing from trauma of not knowing that he was adopted. He is going to be sharing his story with us and his mission to empower other adoptees. So I am very excited about talking about this topic, because you're right, there really is no voice, especially when we're talking about Black adoptees as well. To be able to share, what that experience was, how you felt, how it changed your life. I have a bunch of questions. So before we get into the questions, the podcast itself, I know you said it's going to be covering other topics.
Yes.
Adoption is going to be one of them, but it's going to be other topics.
Yes.
So where can people find your podcast, and what nights is it available?
The podcast.
That was I guess you can listen to it at any time. But
yes.
When do you post the new show?
Okay. Every other Sunday at 9 p.m. On Spotify.com. You just search for The Lost Files, LOS Files. And like I said, hopefully I can keep it interesting enough for people to check in and check back in.
You will.
I mean, like I said, there's a voice for it, but at the same time, like I said, it's I don't want it to be. It's like I'm trying to figure out how to do, what is it, a spoonful of sugar with the medicine.
Okay.
I don't want it to be too heavy.
Okay.
I don't want to be knocking people over the head. I don't want people boo-hooing and crying behind whatever's happening. But I definitely want to touch on important issues that are relevant to me as a Black man in America.
Yeah. A
Black man in America who just happens to be a male adoptee. So there's a lot of voices that I think I can connect with, and at least in those two areas, and then anything else as well.
Yeah.
Like you did right here, right now, something relevant to what's going on in the world today, and how do you feel about it, and what do you have to import or whatever. So I'm trying to figure it out. It's just The Lost Files. Hopefully it's gonna be.
Well, I love
major.
it. I mean, you have my support 100%. So this is not your first time doing a radio or podcast. We worked together in the past, so
Yes,
I have a lot of faith in you, and I'm excited for you. And you know what? It's okay, because sometimes people need to boo-hoo and cry, because that's where they find their healing.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's all good.
Yes.
Once again, you are listening to The Rebirth on Philly Jams 95.3. The phone lines are open, 267-908-3166. We are talking to Poet Loschil from the Lost Child Files podcast.
The Lost Files podcast.
The last time I tongue-tied.
Yes. But see, you used to saying my name.
The Lost Files podcast.
Yes.
I totally butchered that.
That's all right. Nah, it's cool. It's still new to me. Like I said, you see, I got to double, when you ask me about the information and where it at and the social media links, I still got to think back and process it, because I'm still not good on just spilling it, just spitting it out and it flows smoothly.
Right.
I'm working on that.
Right. All right. Well, let's get into it.
Yes.
So let's start from your childhood. What was your childhood like?
I was raised in Irvington, New Jersey, right outside, right next to Newark.
Newark.
Yeah.
See, in Delaware, we call it Newark.
Yes, it's
New
not
Jersey,
Newark.
we call it Newark.
Yes, two clearly different places. Yes, Newark, New Jersey. I was an only child, far best I knew for all those years, obviously. And then somewhere at 13, I was told that I was adopted, and that's pretty much it. We don't want to talk about it anymore. Go finish and play and go back to doing what you was doing. So there was no more conversation about it from that point forward. And specifically, I think I know. I was told the night they told me, I think I cried myself to sleep that night. When I woke up the next morning, it was like a Saturday morning, so everybody my mom and dad were in the kitchen making breakfast or whatever. When I came in, of course, I was still crying from the night before. And she told me, she said, you know what, you're not going to be walking around here acting sad like something wrong. You fix your face and act right. And that was the last conversation we had about it.
So, age 13 is when you found out.
I was 13 when I had it.
What was life like for you prior to you finding out?
I think I had just reconciled the thought and idea that I had the mean mother.
Okay.
Like she was mean to everybody. None of my friends liked that. Oh, your mom's mean as hell. Yo, we hate coming to your house. When your mom's home, everybody scattered. Nobody would come to my house and like ring my doorbell if I can come out and play back in the day, because they was like, nah, your mom's home. Yo, she always come to the door spazzing on people. Even in the family, she's the mean aunt. She was the aunt that would beat people's kids when the mothers themselves wouldn't beat the kids for not cleaning their room or not doing the dishes or whatever. So I just dealt with the fact that she was the mean mommy. All right, cool. I just dealt a bad hand with the mean mommy thing. And then like I said, at 13, when she told me, okay, we're not really your parents, we adopted you, yada yada yada, woo woo woo. I don't know, something clicked in my head, like, so you're not really my mother, and you treat me the way you treat me?
Yeah.
Like, I just couldn't understand the concept. Like, how do you? And I didn't understand all the particulars about how do you couldn't have a kid, or you didn't want to have a kid, or whatever the case may be, and you go through the whole process of going to get a kid, and somewhere in that process you decide this ain't what you want.
Right.
I don't understand that. Like, if you were a young parent or whatever, and you just had to grow up fast and not knowing you were a baby raising a baby, I can get it. But you purposely chose this, and then somewhere along the line decided this wasn't you wanted. This is not what you wanted. So, all right, keep clothes on him, make sure he's fed. But other than that, get out my face. I don't want to see you. Like the way I've explained it to people before, I was the best dressed pet in town, because that's how they treated me. So I just didn't understand, like, why do you do that? Like, I just don't understand why someone would do that. So, I mean, part of my voice in the adoption community now is, there's some kid who may be in that same situation or something similar, to know that, man, it's not you. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just everybody wasn't supposed to be a parent. There's a reason why God didn't let you have kids. It wasn't meant for you to try to deviate around that and go with a plan B, because you should never have been a parent, period. So
what I heard you say, you said before you knew that you were adopted, that...
I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent, yes.
No, you're good. You're good. Before you knew that you were adopted, like, I've talked to people before, and they will always... I've had some people say, I always knew something was wrong or something was different, right? But you were saying my mom was mean. She was mean to everybody.
Yeah, she was just mean.
So there was no difference there for you. It was just...
Nah, and that's one of the things I'm learning in the adoption community. There's so many different levels. Like, there's transracial adoptees who know they're adopted because their parents are obviously visual. You can look and see. But the situation a lot of times with the black community, I think, is there was a thing where they purposely would try to match up children with the parents as far as best look. And I don't know if that's what was done with me. Like, I can't get a straight answer from her really about what went down and how it went down and why or whatever. So I don't know if that was the case, but if you look from the outside in, like, many people over the years told me, man, you and your dad look just alike. And it was kind of one of the things you're trying to smile it off. Yeah, thank you. Keep it moving. But nah, we about the same complexion, but that was about it. Okay. There's no facial features or nothing like that. So, but people would always say it. So it was easy from the outside looking in to be like, oh yeah, that's mom, the dad, and that's their son. It makes perfect sense. So there was nothing prior to them telling me that would tell me something was different. I remember in hindsight conversations, like, my dad was a photographer. He had the camera back in the day. So there's pictures from all the family reunions. I see the cousins when they were kids and the aunts and uncles when they were younger. And I specifically remember asking them one day, like, I keep seeing all these pictures of all the other aunts and cousins pregnant. why you never had pictures of mommy when she had a baby, when she was pregnant with me? And I think he kind of stumbled through it and he never gave me an answer. And I just, I was maybe 8, 9 years old when I asked him that. It didn't register. Like, it was years later when I thought back, I remember asking him that, and he stumbled through it and didn't say anything. I remember back in the late 80s, 88, 89, everybody had Indian in their family. Somebody had something. So I went home, I'm like, tag, all my friends, either they got waves or the girls got this nice look because they got Indian in their family. I went home, I'm like, do we have some Indian in our family? Like, what's our history? What's our back? Whatever. And they just was like that. They didn't even tell me their family. They were just like, we don't know. I'm like, why we don't know?
Okay.
Like, everybody else brag about what they got in their family. Whenever I ask y'all questions like that, y'all just be like, we you don't know.
Right.
So I don't know if they at least play along with the role and tell me your family history, but they just, they didn't play along at all. So in hindsight, I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
But I never had any clues at 11 and 12 years old. And it's just like I said, in hindsight, it was in my 20s when I would think back on these conversations like, wow, they kind of, like I said, they never played along with it. They never told me anything other than, okay, where your mom and your dad, which was normal up until that point, and then from there it was no more conversation. So I didn't have any clues. It was to say the least a hell of a shock.
Right. So my producer just told me I gave out the wrong number. If you are listening and you would like to call in to speak to Poet Loschil, and if you have questions, the hotline is open. It's 267-908-3166, 267-908-3166. So Loschil, at age 13 is when you find out. What do you think pushed them to tell you at 13?
I think they were scared somebody was going to slip up and say something in front of me. Okay. I think there was a situation where my mom had another family member said something in front of her.
Okay.
And I think they actually had a full-fledged fist fight behind it. So when she came home, she was like, all right, we better say something to him before somebody else does or somebody slips up and says something.
Right.
So I think that was the catalyst that caused her to finally go ahead and tell me something. But, well, yes, that's what, and I obviously still agree with the idea behind that being a one-and-done conversation. But, that was it.
So you were told to don't look sad, pretty much suck it up.
Fix your face
and move on. So your feelings and emotions was never validated.
Nah, I just shut down. Like I have, like when I talk to some of the aunts now, they were like, you were always so quiet when you were a kid.
Right.
Yeah, because I was told, don't tell anybody. But this is the only thing I want to know about. This is the only thing I want to talk about. And I can't ask anybody because I was specifically told not to. So, no, I don't want to talk to y'all about nothing. I don't want to tell you about my grades. I don't tell you what grade I'm going to next year or how I like school or don't like school. No, that's nothing I want to talk about. So, when I was around family, I don't know what people thought. I don't know if they thought I was some sort of deaf mute. They knew I could talk because if you asked me a question, I'd give you an answer, but it was like a one-word answer. Yes, no, 5th grade, 7th grade, whatever, woo, woo. Like, but I was like, when family see Poet Loschil, they was like, where did that come from? Because you never talked as a kid.
Yeah.
And now they're starting to hear my story because I never talked to family about it. Like, I didn't talk because I didn't want everything I wanted to talk about. I wasn't supposed to ask anybody because everybody was older than me. Everybody was adults. I was told not to talk. No, don't speak unless spoken to. The children are to be seen and not heard and stuff like that, where everybody's older than me. So I was never comfortable with going to anybody in the family and saying, hey, I want to know this. Or, hey, do you know about that? Whatever. So I just was, I was quiet around family.
Yeah. And that's something that's really relevant or has been relevant and still is. We're trying to get out of that. I'm hoping. Yeah. In the black families is what happens in this house stays in this house, or stay in a child's place. Yep. And a lot of growing up, a lot of kids have been shunned and not being able to talk about their trauma or their pain because they were told not to. Right. So, and especially when we talk about the history of black boys with growing up, boys are not supposed to cry, suck it up, and all of that. And then you have grown men that are walking around that are unable to express their emotions because they were taught not to as young boys. Right. So it often looks like anger when it's really not anger, it's depression that's going on, and maybe there are some anger, emotions, but 9 times out of 10, it is depression, but it looks like anger. So
And that's a
Yeah.
heavy one. I never considered the idea of depression until a couple years ago.
Yeah. I think we had that
Yes,
conversation.
yeah. And it's like I said, from hanging around people like yourself, and just listening to you just address other topics in general, it kind of struck something in my head to make me start asking questions about my own situation. And I think at that point, when I initially was around you, I wasn't in contact with any of the adoptee resources that I am now.
Right,
So it
right.
was just from a basic mental health perspective of listening to you talk and just following you with some of your endeavors. That definitely was one of the first, I guess, lights of mental health that I saw. And then when I got into the adoption community, I started realizing that it's a major thing for us. And it's a major thing for us to address some of the things mentally that happen to us as children that, if never processed, causes certain things in our characteristics as adults.
Right.
I just, for years, I thought I was weird. I wasn't, whatever. This is just who I am, but it's nothing that I can tie back to anything from when I was a child. It's just me. I'm just weird. I'm just not weird in a bad way. I was just my own, always my own little person, whatever. I didn't necessarily follow trends and never didn't necessarily do what everybody else wanted to do or whatever. I was my own person. And I just thought that was it until I started meeting adoptees and realized that there's common traits and characteristics in our personalities. It's just like, wow, okay, so this is connected to
Yeah.
my childhood. So
Absolutely. Everything's connected to your childhood.
I said the opposite for
It
years.
really is.
I just assumed
Yeah.
that I'm grown, and that was that man tough guy stuff. Like I'm grown. Like that happened 30 years ago when I was a kid. Like that don't have nothing to do with me no more. And
Yeah.
not really. And the more I said it, the more I realized if I gotta keep saying it to myself, it must mean something.
Yeah.
Maybe it does have some connection. So
It's it's connection, but it doesn't have to define who you are today
Right,
and moving
right.
forward. The only way that happens is if you have not healed from it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So that's why it's so important to be able to heal from the trauma and understand it and propel forward. You know, so after finding out, that you were adopted and your feelings and emotions wasn't validated, I can only imagine that at that point life has changed for you. Now at 13, we already are in that development stage where we're trying to figure out our identity in
Right.
regards to, our friends and, school, where we belong and all of that, right? How did that impact you on top of just going through the whole child development stage of, learning who you are?
I think I just got stunted in a lot of ways. Like I said, a lot of things I wouldn't do to I don't know. It's hard for me to say because, like I said, the one thing I can say about this whole process is I am living it right now. This isn't anything I've been really chewing on and talking about and expressing prior to the last year or so. So I'm just now getting to the point of thinking back to things that it was connected to or things that it could have been things that it did. But where I tried to normalize some things about my personality just now, coming to the realization that it wasn't normal. But I stuck to myself those years.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there were a few friends that I had that were close by, and most of them didn't know during those high school years. I think there was one friend that I had that I think I did talk about, that I talked about it with in high school. But even my close friends from that point out into my early 20s, I think I eventually started talking about it in my early 20s or whatever. But other than that, I normalized what I called my weirdness. I didn't have a problem staying by myself or sticking to myself. And I just assumed that it was because I was an only child.
Right.
I'm used to being by myself anyway. So, like, I didn't look to be around people. And I just thought that was normal. That was my norm. It wasn't anything weird about it.
How did family, cousins, and because I know you had cousins, right? That I'm
Right.
sure what did anything change with them? Like if you had cousins your age, did that change the relationship after finding out that you were adopted?
Nah, because that was the thing with the cousins. I'm the last cousin.
Okay.
I'm the last grandchild. There's nobody in the family younger than me until my cousins started having kids.
Okay.
So me being the youngest, I was literally the baby of the family. And most of them are like 10 years plus older than me. So at 13, they were in their early 20s, they were adults. So I already wasn't talking to them because they were adults, regardless of whether they were young adults or whatever the case was, they were adults. So we didn't have that close bond and relationship to begin with. So from 13 on out, Yeah, it didn't make anything any better or worse. It was just they were adults that I couldn't speak to anyway, so it didn't matter.
Yeah. Well, we're going to, continue this conversation. We're going to go to break. You are listening to The Rebirth on Philly James 95.3. My special guest tonight is Poet Loschil from the Lost Child podcast. We'll be back. Every 3 seconds, a woman is murdered by an intimate partner due to domestic violence. A damaged self-worth, distorted thoughts, and fear keep a woman trapped. It's time to renew. 50% of marriages end in divorce. Loss of identity, security, and financial instability can cause a person to grieve a relationship as if they are grieving death. It's time to rebuild. Only 10% of Americans dealing with addiction receive treatment. More than 20% of Americans with anxiety disorder also suffer from a drug use disorder. People addicted to prescription drugs are 40 times more likely to become addicted to heroin. It's time to restore. Life happens to all of us, no matter race, gender, or age. You will be challenged to rediscover who you are meant to be, and what purpose you are meant to serve. Starting over after a life crisis, 12-step online course will help you rebuild, restore, renew, and rebirth the new version of yourself. It's never too late to start over and rewrite your story. Sometimes we have to die a little inside in order to be reborn. The rebirth. Hey guys, it's your girl, Shay Marriott, the host of the Rebirth Show. I want to give you a look behind the scenes where we have so much fun here on the Rebirth Show. We come to you every Monday night at 7 p.m. and we bring their energy. We're just not showing you on the radio, but we're also showing you behind scenes. We're family here. If you would like to be a guest of the Rebirth Show, make sure you hit me at info@rebirthu.com. And it is Monday, man. These weekends be going by quick.
I know. Who was the genius that said we worked 5 days and be off 2? Who was that fool?
Probably was a man.
Wow, a clear one.
Where you at? Y'all gotta do your state. Y'all gotta do your state. Backwards. You gotta get this.
Welcome back to the Rebirth. My name is Shay Marriott. Thank you for joining us tonight. Happy Martin Luther King Day, everybody. What did you do? What did you do today? How did you serve? Or did y'all just chill and stay home? What's the real? Joining me tonight is the one and only Poet Loschil from the Lost Files. And we are talking about, I'm going to say redefining, redefining who you are. Healing from trauma after learning that you were adopted, and now your mission to be able to help other adoptees through this journey. So, we're going to pick up where we left off at, and I had asked you a question in regards to When did you find out that you were adopted? You said at age 13. So, what age would have known?
From some of the other stories that I've heard, because like I said, I've been following these other adoptee Instagram pages and listening to other people's stories. I mean, if I could ideally pick, I would choose to have been told as early as possible. Some people say they always knew. Their moms and dads were always open about it. When they were in like preschool, they had books that talked about adoption in some way, form, or fashion, and it was just always an open subject where they were able to ask questions and process it as early as they were old enough to think about it and realize what it really was. And I think that is the best way to do it. It doesn't leave room for the problems that definitely occurred in my life. So if I could have chosen, yeah, definitely early as on 5 years old, 6 years old, somewhere around there.
And how do you think, by knowing, do you think you would have been able to actually process that at 5 or 6 years old?
No, but if it's a continuous conversation,
Right.
As you
Right.
grow, the more you start understanding. If you're allowed to ask questions, and from the understanding that you have at that point, I believe it definitely eliminates the like I said, the problems. Like, so knowing at that age and having the continual conversation.
Right. So I'm sure the listeners that are out there are probably curious about what is your relationship like now with your parents.
Not good at all. He passed away just October, I think, of 20. My time frame reference is completely off right now. I don't know if it's been a year yet, but he passed away. She's still here. Her and I don't talk very much at all. Prior to him passing, we didn't talk much at all. I think I've spoken to her a couple of times since he's passed, and it's just we've never had a good relationship. I'm kind of in the middle of this is all happening like as we speak, real time right now. Trying to figure out as her health declines, me being the only child. Now, how do I go take care of somebody who never took care of me?
Wow. Yeah.
So that's a decision I'm literally in the process of making today, tomorrow, the next, because that's where she's at now, aged and health wise, and now I'm stuck trying to figure out how do I do that.
Yeah. What does that even look like?
Right. So we've never had a good relationship. Most of my adult life, like I said, I stayed away from them as much as I could. Don't celebrate birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, anything of that nature. I just did. I said when I was a teenager, when I get out of here, y'all not gonna see or hear from me no more. I'm done. Like it's ridiculous. So no, not a good relationship at all.
Okay. Shout out to Eli. He has just tuned in. He said, "What up, fam?"
Eli, what's happening, family?
He said, "Lost Child, thanks for coming on, bruh."
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. Even in your absence, you are still here with us.
Absolutely. You better get your butt back in next Monday, Eli. So, Lost Child, as we know, like I said earlier, that things that we've gone through in our childhood, they tend to, kind of have a hold on us as adults. How has this shown up for you in your adult life? What has been, I guess, the hardest thing for you as an adult, to really process, deal with, and heal from?
I think one of the biggest things for me is relationships with other people.
Okay.
Definitely in personal relationships with just about every woman that I've ever dealt with in life. But I'm also realizing that it's affecting relationships I've had, even with coworkers. Just relationships with people in general. I've never referred to it as trust issues, or I mean, even if it's trusting someone just on the surface level, like I don't have that. So getting deeper into where it's a close personal relationship with a loved one or whatever, like it's even heavier on that level. But it's not just personal relationships. It's just like I said, even surface relationships. I'm not very good with making those connections.
Right. I can only imagine. And the trust part, is it a thing of someone will hurt? Is it a perspective of being hurt or abandoned, or like where is it? When I say trust, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
And I'm still trying to figure out how to put it in words myself. Like I'm not sure. Is it abandonment issues, or is it the idea that someone may hurt if I grow to lean on someone, then they're not going to be there for me. I'm not sure if it's all of those bits and pieces of each one or any one specific. I'm still trying to put a finger on how to explain it and verbalize what it is, because like I said, from 13 to my early 40s, I just sat on it, and there's nothing wrong with me. This is just regular. This is just who I am. So I didn't say, oh, well, I have trust issues. I've never said, oh, I have depressive states here and there, whatever. I've never said, oh, I have bonding issues with people. I just thought it was just who I was. So I can't say exactly which of those it may be. I think it's a little bit of each and every.
Yeah. So you recognize that there are some things there, as we all have these things that we have to work on and we have to heal from. I'm just curious, what process for you have you or are you planning on taking to try to heal through some of that, and what has that been like for you?
Part of it now is just me talking. Like I talk about it. Obviously, I have my own show, The Lost Files.
Yes, you do.
On Spotify.
That's right. You better market. You better promote that.
So I think now it's just me talking about it as much. I'm probably I tell people quite often. I think this last year I've almost been overdosing on information, because it's just this last year that I've been open to all the resources that are out there specifically for the adoptee community. There's websites, there's Facebook pages, there's Instagram pages. I got to shout out my sister Coco at the Black Adoptee on Instagram. Like, she was the first adoptee page that I found, and from her page I found other adoptee pages and other pages, podcasts that are adoptee centered. And just this morning she inboxed me. It's an poetry open mic just for adoptees.
Oh, when is this?
This, I don't have the date right now,
come
because
on,
she just sent it to me this morning. But those are the things I'm finding out now that I never realized existed and a part of the community or floating around out there, whatever the case may be. But the Adoptee podcast is every third Thursdays at 8 p.m. on the Adoptee open mic. Is their Instagram page. I guess it's live. I don't even know where it's at yet. I just found it. But the Instagram page is the Adoptee open mic on Instagram. And they do a monthly open mic that's adoptee centered, so that, like, it's right up my alley, obviously. So
absolutely. Well, I tell you what, as soon as you get that information, send it to me, and I will make sure I promote it here on Rebirth, because we definitely want to make sure people are connecting. Shout out to Shannon Myrick. Shout out to Sir Francie Star. Hey, sis. She says, I love your show. Thank you, Queen. I really appreciate that. Thank you for tuning in. So, listen, it sounds to me that your healing process is connection. It's connecting to people that see you.
Right. Yes, I like that. It's definitely been a lot of connections. I've definitely been, quote unquote, making a lot of friends, but friends who I don't have to explain stuff to.
Right.
Friends who already understand. When I say something, they understand the feeling behind it. Like, when I talk to them, I don't feel like I'm being a jerk when I tell people how I feel about the people who raised me, because a lot of them feel the same way about the people who raised them. Like I've heard a lot of variations of stories. I've heard stories of people who were adopted by families and adored by these families, and these families treated them right and did everything for them and made sure that they grew and mentally, physically, and all of that or whatever. But then it's a bunch of people whose story correlates to mine, where they were adopted by people who mistreated them.
Right. Absolutely.
So for me, never hearing that perspective from anyone else, I just thought I was the bad dude. I thought I was a bad kid because I don't want to have anything to do with the people who raised me. Like, what kid does that? Like, you're the worst of worst types of kids for that. And that's how I felt for 40 some odd years, until 44 years, until, like I said, this last year, I'm meeting other adoptees, specifically black adoptees, and they're like, yo, my parents were jerks. My mom she did this and she did that. I'm like, oh, mine did too. And they were like, oh, I don't talk to mine anymore. I don't talk to mine either. So it's like, okay, I'm not a bad person because this is a natural, like, if you treat somebody like dirt and still expect them to care about you later on in the year, like, that's not normal. So I thought something was just wrong with me until I started meeting other people who felt
Right.
the same way for the same reasons. So those connections, I can't tell people this last year. It's been ridiculous emotionally, roller coasters up and
I'm
down,
sure.
because it got to a point where I felt like I was feeling like something was wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not how a normal person is supposed to think. And it's just like, something's wrong with me because I shouldn't feel like this.
Right.
So it wasn't until like I started meeting some of these other people, I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm quote unquote as normal as I can be considering the circumstances.
Yeah.
This is the normal path of progression or whatever if you're raised in that situation.
Right.
So those connections are definitely like vital to me right now. I lean on those pages. I go to the podcast. I think outside of listening to my own podcast show, I'm on the Black Adoptee podcast. It's two sisters who found out they're late discovery adoptees. So they started a podcast, and it's just adoptee centered. They interview adoptees, mothers who gave up their children for adoption, and also mothers who adopted. And that's just what their show was about.
Yeah.
So I listen to that almost religiously. I keep up when they get a new episode. I'm right there. I slammed it into like 2 weeks. I went from first episode all the way up to the current episode, because they speak on that perspective, and they shine light on so many things that I've never asked, things I didn't even know to ask, things I didn't even know that are documented situations or whatever based on experiences or whatever. So these connections have been vital for me specifically these last 6-7 months.
Yeah. I mean, it's, when we talk about community, you break that down, common unity. That's the word spells it out, common unity, right?
Yeah.
So being able to have someone that, you can relate to, and like you said, you didn't even have to explain it, but they were able to validate your feelings and your emotions, even at age 8, at 13, when you were having all of this come up and you did not get the validation from your parents. These people, your new family, right? Because I believe that family does not always have to be blood.
Right.
Sometimes your most closest family is people that are not even related to you, right? So being able to have that, I'm sure that is also has started your journey on healing. And the other thing is the fact that you are a poet and you are creative, and you use words to also, as expression, right? So how big of a part do you think your story has played in the fact of you being a poet?
I think that's one of like the joking things, that, especially when it comes to the family, because like I said, they never really heard me talk.
Right.
So I think that like the joke kind of that we've said in the family, it's just like, okay, you didn't talk for so long, you had all these words, all these thoughts, all these ideas, now it just comes pouring out, spilling out. And like for people who have heard my poetry or my spoken word, is very rapid fire and high fever and pace. And they said it's because you held on to stuff for so long. Now it's just coming out. Just that's the speed it has to come out, because it's just been in there. The pressure, like when you turn on a hose and you turn it all the way on to the highest pressure, it's pushing out so hard, it's coming out like that. So because I didn't talk about it for so long, now that's just where it is.
Yeah, and you're very talented. Very talented.
Thank you. I thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm working on it.
So have you, I know a couple years ago when you came on the show before, and that's when I had found out, you were sharing your story with me. You were in the process of trying to identify your mom. And I listened to one of your podcasts, and I heard you say that you were so focused on identifying your mother and trying to find her, it didn't even come to you to start looking for your father. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've in the process of looking. Initially, in year 2017, the state of New Jersey changed the adoption laws for closed adoptions. So prior to 2017, if your adoption was closed, you couldn't have access to your original records. Unless there was a medical emergency or something to that effect, you had to go get a lawyer and go to court, and there's a whole legal process or whatever the case may be. Once they changed the law in 2017, any adoptee that was a closed adoption, which means you didn't have access to your records, can now obtain your records from the State Hall in Trenton. So I got that information first. From there, I found out my birth mother's name, according to the paperwork, because I'm starting to believe there are some discrepancies, and sometimes people don't tell the truth.
Okay.
But from the information that I have, my birth mother's name was Cynthia Sims. She had me, I think it was like 25 years old in Teaneck, New Jersey. She was currently working. She wasn't a citizen. She was from Jamaica. She was in the States working her way through nursing school when she had me. She had, according to the information that I have a sister that's 3 years older than me that was sent back to Jamaica 3 years prior. And so from that information, I somehow, I don't recall how, but I found the adoption agency that they used the process or whatever the case may be, and I got their, I think it's called non-identifying information. I got that from them and didn't really have much to go off of with that, so then I did both DNA tests, 23andMe and Ancestry.com. I haven't really gotten any hits on that. Like, everything is so far-fetched, like the relatives are so distant in relation that nothing that anybody can specifically tell me, or nothing that I've reached out to people and asked them, does the name Cynthia Simmons ring any bells? Or did you have any family in the Teaneck, New Jersey area back in around 76 or whatever? But I haven't gotten any information from those resources. So now I'm pretty much just kind of like at a dead wall, like a dead end. I've hit brick walls on pretty much every avenue that I've gone down trying to find something to reconnect.
Yeah. Wow. Well, are you still longing to?
Yes, I'm actually looking into
A private investigator, or there are people that are called search angels.
Right.
I don't know exactly where they are in adoption triad. I don't know if they're other mothers who have adopted kids and they're just helping kids who don't have that help, or they're mothers that have adopted, that put kids up for adoption so they know the process, so they know how to backfeed through the process or whatever. They're considered search angels. There's some sites on like Facebook sites where if you link with one of these search angels, they'll help you beyond, I guess, whatever you can do for yourself. So I'm at the point now where I'm trying to configure how to reach out to one of these search angels and see if they can help me.
Okay. All right. During this process, what is the one thing that you've learned about yourself during this journey? Yeah. I mean, it could be more than one, but what stands out for you?
One of the things I think that my therapist hit me with that I thought was kind of heavy, he said, whoever your biological family is, whatever they passed on to you genetically, as far as your spirit and your endurance and your whatever, for you to have gone through what you've gone through, not addressed it for 30 some odd years, not had anyone to talk to, not had anybody to help you process any of this, you turned out pretty good considering. So I think that's one of the things I've learned. Maybe I'm more resilient than I ever thought I was. Maybe I have something that's there that's because I've always felt since 13 when I found out. I mean, I've always felt like I didn't have that get up and go, that unction, that I've always felt like it was more of a quitting spirit that I had. I figured, hey, my mom quit. She didn't even try. She quit from day one. So that's what she passed on to me, because that's all I know of her, that she quit. She didn't even try. And I felt like that was part of just who I was and stuff. Like, I never finished school, never was able to successfully stay with a job long enough to where it turned into a lifelong career, whatever the case. I've always dropped the ball one way or another for this, that, and the other, and I just felt that was just who I was. It was quitting was just ingrained in who and what I was. But the therapist, he was like, nah, whoever your people were, they had to pass on some strong stuff, because you did all of this up until this point without therapy, without parents talking to you, without having siblings to talk to, without having anyone your age to talk to. You've been doing this on your own, in your head, for 30 some odd years, and you are pretty tight with it. So yeah, you gotta pat yourself on the back for that, if nothing else. So I think that's one of the things that I've come to realize about myself in this whole thing.
Yeah, that is pretty dope, and you're pretty dope yourself. So I heard you mention therapy, and of course, you know, I'm a therapist. So could you, like I say it all the time, we talk about this on the show all the time, the importance of getting therapy. But could you just kind of just give your experience a little bit of the importance of, you know, having a therapist, especially having a therapist that you can connect with, because I think that's really important.
Well, I'm still trying to figure this whole therapy journey out. As far as,
Okay.
like you said, specifically with a therapist that you can connect with.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the people that I've spoken to in the adoption community, they say they've gone through a number of therapists. It's not like they got the first one they got
Yeah.
with, and they've had it was a trial and error process. And most of them started in their teens. Their parents maybe had addressed it and figured it was a good idea. I know people that went in a foster care system. Therapy is a part of the program if you're a foster child. If you're adopted right out, it's up to your parents if they feel it's necessary. So some people's parents realized that it was something that they thought would be beneficial to their child. So I'm still trying to figure it out. This is my first therapist. Actually, it's my second therapist. During 2020, I went online and had found someone, and it was cool. But I think I got to a point with them, kind of where I'm at right now. Like I think I'm getting just as much out of talking about it right here, right now with you, than I do. I don't see too much of a difference of what more I'm getting out of it, but I don't know if I'm supposed to be getting anything more out of it or how it's really supposed to work. Like I don't know. And like I said, everything is real time. I'm figuring it out right here, right now, today. So I don't really know if it's helping or how it should be helping or what I should be looking for out of it.
Yeah. Well, the fact that you are talking, and I think that's the biggest thing, is the fact that you have the voice. You're doing the work, and you're not only doing the work for yourself, but you are now, in front. You realize that you're with everything that you have gone through, your tests, everything that was, maybe designed as we, in our minds then, in your 13-year-old mind, you may have been thinking this was designed to break you, but it didn't, right? So, you turned that test into now a testimony where you are speaking to people, you are sharing your story, and people need to hear that because people need to be able to identify and relate that, okay, someone went through this, or I'm not, I'm not weird, or I don't feel guilty for not liking my adopted parents. You know what I'm saying? They can you're normalizing this situation as we speak in real time. So which I think is very dope, right? Because we could talk about our story, we could say everything that we went through, but when we don't share how we overcame it, or if we're in the process of overcoming it, that's the part we don't share and we don't leave out. I mean, that's the part that we leave out.
Right.
So we need to, be able to set the blueprints for others that's coming along can follow, and understand that they can be healed through that journey, and they can also be able to help other people. Now, in your work of meeting other adoptees, starting the Lost Files podcast, what message do you want to put out there? Like if there's a parent that's out there listening right now and they have not talked to their child about being adopted, what message would you give them? What message would you give the child that could possibly be listening right now and maybe feeling like you were when you were 13 years old? What is that message you want to leave with them?
Well, first, to the parents, I would say don't lie to these kids. That's one of the biggest things that I say on my show, and I repeat it anytime it comes up. Do not lie to these kids, because it's something, I don't know what the connection of parent and child is supposed to be, but when you go for years thinking, okay, this person is my parent, and then it's that reality is changed. Like I think that emotionally does something to a person's how they connect with people from that point forward, because your parents, or like they said, for sons, their first hero is supposed to be their dad.
Right.
The first woman a man loves is his mother. So if that first love is tarnished, and it's gonna affect every love that even looks like that from that point forward.
Right.
That connection to your first superhero, like you find out your superhero ain't super. That's like beyond a kid finding out Santa Claus don't exist. You know what I mean? It's like it's that type of, like, don't lie to these kids. Whatever you do, don't lie to these kids. Let them talk about it. Let them process it. Let them ask questions, because they're going to have questions.
Right.
When other little kids are talking about, I know my granddad was this, that, and the other, and I know I would come home and ask them stuff. Like, these other kids is telling me that their grandfather was a Vietnam vet hero and this, that, and the other. Hey, what about mine? And Like I said, they didn't even fake the funk and tell me about their parents or their grandparents or whatever. Just play along with it. They were just like, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, what? So I just, it does something to the mentality that, like I said, I still can't put into words. So yeah, don't lie to these kids from the parents' perspective. And to the kids, don't ever feel like it's your fault or you did something wrong. Or, like I said, if there's someone that's not willing to talk to you, you don't necessarily have to be disrespectful about it, but you can talk to someone else and it's okay. It's not like you're being a bag. Like, I thought I was the worst kid in the world because I was told not to. Whatever happens in this house stays in this house.
Right.
So I can't tell anybody, I can't ask anybody, and I'm gonna be the bad kid, not being disobedient and whatever, for not listening. And shit, I was being beat for stuff that I didn't do. So I'm like, all right, I'm not about to do something to give her a reason to beat me. So all right, let me just keep my mouth closed. And it must not be that important if she's not letting me talk about it, or no one's addressing it. So it's whatever this is that's in my head must just be, like I said, I'm crazy or something. Let me just leave it alone and pretend it don't exist, or pretend I don't want to know, because nobody's letting me talk. So yeah, that was for kids. That's not, man, that you do something horrible to these kids when you do that to them. So if that's a child situation, yeah, you're not being wrong for reaching outside of that and not obeying for a change, and reaching outside to ask someone something if that's what you need.
So, Lost Child, where do you think this journey is leading you then?
I don't know. Like I said, it's in the midst of, I mean, you get on a plane with a blank ticket and you just sitting down strapped in, you hear the engines running, you feel the plane taking off and it's pulling you back in your seat, and you're rising and you're up and away. You're 30 feet, what is it? Altitude is, flying altitude is 30, you're at 30,000 feet. I have no idea where you're going at.
Yeah. Be open to the process.
Yeah, I'm
Be
learning.
open to the process. You know, I truly believe, again, you know, it's not how you start, but it's how you finish. And you know, I think that you have a mission ahead of you, and that you're meant to share your story and continue to talk to people and encourage people, because that's part of you encouraging you, right? I don't think we realize that, like, hey, I could be in a therapy session. I might be saying something to one of my clients, and inside I'm talking to myself too. I'm like, girl, you better practice that when you get home. Right? So that's part of your healing. And you know, I support you in everything that you are doing, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm excited because you're very talented. Those of you who don't know, Lost Child and I, we met during a play.
Yes.
He played my brother in a play that we did. Yeah. And you know, I called you that name for the longest.
Yes.
So, and then we were blessed to be able to do a second play, you know, right after that. I think it was a year later. And that's how we met. He came on the show a few years ago and was a rotating guest host for the Rebirth show.
Yes.
And I'm so happy to have him back. And I always think that you have a lot to bring, and that's why I always love when you do come on. You have a lot to bring, a lot to offer, and you are very natural at it. And on top of that, he's an awesome poet. I should have told you to spit something for me tonight, but I ain't gonna put you on the spot. I appreciate you.
I'm always ready.
Okay.
Well, that's a personal thing with me. I hate that. When somebody tell me they do something, I'm in the studio every night, something coming up magic, and then you ask me to hear something, nah, I'm not ready right now. Like, come on, man, don't talk to me no more about you.
That's what I'm talking about.
So if it's in my name, I need to be ready whenever somebody say, all right, why do you call yourself Poet? I need to at least be able to show that. So, yeah.
Well, you know what? We're going to end the show with you doing something. But before we get there, I want to first shout out to everybody that tuned in tonight on social media. Eli, Isabel, Shannon, Marek, Les LaShore, I see you. Thank you for tuning in. Sir Francis Starr, thank you for tuning in. Thank you guys that are tuning in via YouTube as well as the radio. Shout out to Ace. Ace is Lost Child producer for the Lost Files. Shout out to him. He's in the studio with us tonight, as well as my producers, Jen and Tasha. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. You have been listening to The Rebirth on Philly Jams 95.3. Make sure you tune in every Monday night at 7 p.m. Next Monday, the boy Eli Isabel will be back in the building as always, and we will bring you real talk with real people about real topics.
So we're going to end the show tonight with Poet Loschil. You got it.
Cool. The reason, well, most of the time when people hear my name, Lost Child, they think Lost, L-O-S-T, Child, C-H-I-L-D. What? See, what I did is I took off the T and Lost, took off the D and Child, and smashed the rest together into one word, L-O-S-C-H-I-L, Lost Child. Because I was given up for adoption at birth, and 45 years later, I'm still looking for my mother. So the name Lost Child, I think, fits. But the reason why I go by the name of Lost Child is because I am descended from that which I know not directly, but my complexion and hair texture point me in an undeniable direction connected with my demographic section, perfecting the pattern of manhood manufactured by man who actually knew what it meant to be men. Far from perfect in relation to salvation and sin, but grounded on that foundation laid for us way back when, like back when a man would make a child and then stick around and see that child growing and nurture with the strong hands so right from wrong the child would know. But currently there seems to be some common misconceptions about us men of color, characterized by these clowns on TV. We be that which we see as detrimental when our own eyes liken to the lies laid out for our own demise at some point. Somewhere we've got to sever these ties, like try unplugging the TV, maybe changing the radio station, because reality TV can't be reflective of the future that we're facing, erasing our royal lineage passed down from generation to generation through the word that's spoken and the stories that's told. And well, I choose to hold fast to these truths, which are self-evident that we as a people have evidently been led to forget, letting someone else tell us who we are and how we're supposed to dress, how we're supposed to talk, and how we're supposed to walk in the ways of wayward men. While I stand here today before my peers, before my elders, but especially before those not quite as advanced in their years, as a voice for something, damn near anything, just different, because I'm lost. Peace.
Thank you, Lost Child. Powerful brother, talented brother. Thank you for joining us. You guys have a blessed night. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Awesome.